Welcome to the From Lab to Patient, Garage to Market podcast with your host, Phil Crowley. In each episode, we will discuss professionals serving the tech startup market and the various issues of importance to those companies. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, CrowleyLawLLC.com. Now here's the host of From Lab to Patient, Garage to Market, Phil Crowley.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. You know, we try to bring to you experts in the area of the life sciences, technology, startups who have perspectives on developments in those areas to give you some ideas about what are the issues to focus on, perhaps what mistakes to avoid, and to basically demystify the process to help give you the confidence to go forward and take that first step on your way of taking your great ideas to the marketplace. Today, I'm delighted to have as my guest Mario Casabona. Mario has participated in many phases of commercializing technology. He started out as a test engineer, went on to form his own very successful company that was acquired by Honeywell. He stayed with Honeywell for a while, and then the entrepreneurial bug bit him again. And he went off and did some other things, serving on boards of other technology startups, starting his own tech accelerator, participating as an angel investor. And Mario has tremendous experience in this area. In fact, I just saw a comment by the publisher of a tech newsletter here in New Jersey, commenting about Mario's experience. And she said that, well, if anybody can help a startup learn how to be financeable, it must be Mario Casabona. And I'd like you to stay tuned for our discussion, because at the end of our discussion, I'm going to ask Mario to give us some tips that he's learned in his long and very successful career as an innovator to help you on your journey. Mario, welcome.
Thank you, Phil. I really will enjoy this opportunity, and glad to be here. Very much so.
Well, Mario, we have kind of this unusual relationship in that we were both 8th grade classmates back in the day at St. Valentine School in Bloomfield, New Jersey. And you went on to initially go to a particular high school, and then you had some decisions to make. And I think that the decisions and the way you went about it are so interesting that I would ask you to share that with our audience, because it reminds me of a wonderful book by Angela Duckworth called Grit, Grit. And I think that you have shown that throughout your career. And if you would share that story, I think it'd be really instructive.
Hi, Phil, you're very kind. Thank you. Yes, it's a journey. It's a life journey. And frankly, it started, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Italy, and parents and I, when I was 5 years old, we immigrated to United States, primarily to make it much better for me, for my future. And my mother and father sometimes reminded me of that. But we immigrated to Brooklyn, New York. When I was about 12, 13 years old, we immigrated to New Jersey. And what was even more interesting is that we immigrated to a part of New Jersey which was not Italian, but it was all Polish. And that's how I got to meet Phil. And I've known him, all these years now. Really interesting. And because my parents were somewhat religious, Catholic, they wanted me to continue my high school in Catholic high school. I went to Essex Catholic High School. I was there for about 2 years, but during those 2 years, I was more in a career path that I really didn't want to be. I really wanted to go to college. I wanted to be an engineer. And by the way, I knew I wanted to be an engineer early on. I would take apart TVs, I would try to put them back together, and I wasn't able to put them back together, but I was able to take them apart. There's a meaning to that later. So what I would do is take apart TVs, I would take apart a bicycle, I would take apart things, and in most cases I could pull them together again, and in some cases I just couldn't do that. But in any case, went to high school, went 2 years to Essex Catholic High School, and I was in a different career path, and I wanted to go to college, university. So what I did, and Phil alluded this earlier, what I did is my junior year of high school, instead of going back to Essex Catholic High School, which is located in Newark, what I did is I showed up at Bloomfield High School. I enrolled in Bloomfield High School, forging my parents' signature. And that was the way I was able to get more into a college prep curriculum. And it was interesting going from a private school to a public school. I learned quite a bit in doing that, especially in some negotiations. It was interesting. So left, went to Bloomfield High School, graduated, was able to get into Fairleigh Dickinson University. I was in their engineering curriculum, became, BS double E. And then, Phil, should I continue or just?
Well, sure. And with respect to your career pathway, starting out in the electronics industry.
Okay. So really, I graduated college, and I was excited. I mean, this is interesting. I was excited by the radar dishes on top of a building at ITT in Nutley, New Jersey. And I said, I want to work there. So it turns out in between, for about 6 months, 9 months, I worked at a biotech company. And then I was able to get into ITT Avionics, which is a defense contractor. And and my background is electromagnetic fields and waves. So I became a design engineer at ITT. It was an interesting experience. I probably was the junior engineer amongst a lot of senior engineers there. Learned a lot, and design engineer. And I was there for about 2 to 3 years. And they wanted to promote me to systems engineering. And I said, no. I really am convinced my world is to be a design engineer. That's my career path. So I left and I went with a commercial avionics company in northern New Jersey. I was there for about 2 to 3 years, and they wanted to put my equipment that I had designed into manufacturing. And I said, no, I don't want to go into manufacturing. I want to stay in development. So I left there and I went back to ITT, the same group the RF design group. And I was probably there for another 2 or 3 years. And then I heard this company that was a spin-off of ITT called Curis and Alterman, and they were located in Wayne, New Jersey. So I moved over to Curis Alterman, which is a spin-off company. I was there probably a total of 3 to 4 years. And during that time period, I started out as a design engineer, and then I ended up being manager of the automatic test equipment. And how I ended up becoming a manager is interesting. My my immediate supervisor, Bill Sullivan, who was one of my mentors. And that's another thing. Through life, you have you have several individuals that are mentors, and you don't really reflect on that mentorship until you look back and you say, if it wasn't for this individual, maybe I wouldn't have had the courage, or I wouldn't have had the inspiration. But Bill Sullivan, I'm probably 2 years working for him, reporting to him. He comes in one day and he taps me on the shoulder and he says, Mario, we need to talk. At that point, I'm there 2-3 years thinking, oh, what did I do now? So I sat down in his office. Now, you don't know when your boss says to you, come on in, I need to talk to you. So I went into his office, sat me down. He says, Mario, I'm going to be honest with you. You're a much better manager than you are a design engineer. Okay. Shattered my life. Phil, at that point, I was like 2 or 3 days depressed. I thought I was the hotshot engineer. And in reality, within 6 months, he ended up reporting to me. Okay. Now, whether that was a setup or not, I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to be the manager, so he picked me. But that's really looking back. Remember, I mentioned that I would be able to take things apart, and sometimes I wouldn't be able to put them together again.
Yes.
That was a sign that maybe I'm not so good as an engineer, but I'm definitely much better as a manager. Okay.
Well, that realization that comes through reflection is an important part of your journey, Mario, and I think that it has led you on the journey to try to use your skills with people to help other people and to go forward. What inspired you to go out and set up your own company? That seems like another big step forward.
Well, the thing that I learned, jumping from one company to another, it wasn't jumping, but you never burn your bridges. But going from one company to another, and then with a spinoff, you find out that the real key to success is understanding your customer and providing the service you promise to your customer. So customer focused. And that's what I was, becoming manager, delivering a product. When this larger company acquired Curus and Alterman, I thought their focus was more on internal controls, internal management, and not the customer.
Right.
And I did have a spout with the president at that time, not the original founder, but the enterprise president that came in. And I said, nope, I could do this better. I'm done. I enjoy the customers. And what I did is I spun off. At that point, I had 3 options. I had 2 kids, wife, family to support. What do I do? And I had 3 options. First option was put together a business plan, pitch deck, go out and pitch and raise capital. The second option was to go to a bank with the same business plan and try to raise capital, get a loan and try to raise capital that way. But then I have to put my house as collateral. And the third option was just bootstrap, take my vacation money, as much as my wife at that time wasn't willing to take the risk. I still did that, and with 2 weeks vacation, started Electro-Radiation Incorporated. And within like 2 or 3 years, I already had hired about 25 engineers in the local New Jersey area, because at that time it was a hot spot for the defense electronics industry. So I started Electro-Radiation in the defense industry, jamming, anti-jamming, radar, navigation. We were the experts in the industry, and sold it 23 years later, 2004, to Honeywell Aerospace. I was at Honeywell for about 3 years, and they wanted to take, there's a pattern to this, they wanted to take the technology that we had developed and go into manufacturing. And at that point, I said, okay, my staff is, by the way, Honeywell hired all of my staff. That was part of the package.
Right.
And they wanted to transfer now the technology into manufacturing. I said, nope, I want to stay in development. I like customer relationships, business development. So I left in good terms, by the way. And I said, now what do I do with myself? I've got I have a great exit, and I could either start another 1, 2 companies, or I can start giving back.
All right.
And
And Mario, let me hold you right there
okay,
so that we can take a brief pause. And I'd just like to acquaint our listeners with Crowley Law. We are a boutique law firm of experienced lawyers who are passionate about helping life sciences and other technology entrepreneurs realize their dreams. To take great ideas from the laboratory bench to the patient's bedside, or from the garage to the marketplace, to enrich the lives of thousands or millions of people. I'm a former research physicist, and so I have a soft spot in my heart for innovators because I know how hard it is to create new knowledge. And as an experienced corporate lawyer who's worked on Wall Street, at the law department of Johnson and Johnson, and for now more than 10 years at a law firm that I founded, I know how difficult it can be even to take great ideas and get them to the marketplace. And so we know that innovators need help. So we have a website, CrowleyLawLLC.com, that has a myriad resources, free resources, including an ebook that has gotten a lot of positive responses. It's called The Top 10 Causes of Failure for Technology Startups and How to Avoid Them. And also links to this podcast and other podcasts. And we certainly hope that you will sign up to subscribe to our podcast, because one of the things that troubles me is seeing innovators put off getting experienced counsel to help them, with the result that they get taken advantage of. And I think that's so incredibly unfair. And so we're dedicated to helping them prevent that. And so it's the website, CrowleyLawLLC.com. And please remember, we're here to help. All right, Mario, let's go back to your story. So now you've left Honeywell because they have hit you with the words that you don't like to hear, which is now it's time for us to go into manufacturing. And so you're off on another innovative experience. So tell us about that.
so I was in the defense industry for more than 25 years. So I really wanted to change my career path. So at that point, it's what do I do? Again, I could start another company or two in my lifetime, if you would, or I could take some of my discretionary funds, if you would, from the sale to Honeywell, and give it back to the ecosystem, to the tech startup ecosystem. And so I decided to become an angel investor. And I would invest through Casabona Ventures. So I started another organization called Casabona Ventures. And I joined, it's interesting in life, you'll learn that you're not, an individual is not the smartest person in the room. There's people much smarter than others in the room. So what I decided to do, besides being an angel investor, is I wanted to join a group of angel investors that had diverse background and that I can continue learning. I can learn being an angel investor, and I can also learn on the technologies. Okay, so I joined Jumpstart New Jersey Angel Network, and that was in 2007. In 2009, I became the chairman of Jumpstart New Jersey Angel Network. And I was chairman until about 2012. And then there was a competitive RFP, request for proposal, from the New Jersey Economic Development Authority to create New Jersey's first tech accelerator. So I wrote a proposal, responded to the RFP, and it was competitive. And we won the proposal. The the RFP, and we launched a company called Tech Launch, all one word. Raised a fund. I had to do three separate funds. And it was interesting because then I learned, so I was angel investor, learned how to be an angel investor, maybe not so smart, but learned how to be an angel investor. Then I wanted to learn, well, how do you raise capital? So I literally raised one fund for the first year, and then the second year, and the third year, so three separate funds. And I learned quite a bit. And we launched, if I remember correctly, I think it was 23 companies at that time, and it was actually 4 month. It was a 16 week accelerator. Very interesting. Within a month or two, I already had 60 mentors on board. By the time we were done, we had about 150, 160 mentors. And what was interesting is that most of the mentors were either successful entrepreneurs, angel investors, or business advisors. Okay. So did that for about 3 years. At the end of 3 years, I had it with raising a fund, although I did. And I realized that most of the applications we got were apps at that time. An entrepreneur graduates from college, university, and says, I can do an app in a weekend. And guess what? It just doesn't work that way. Right? It's just, yes, you can create the wireframes, you can create the basis for that app, but eventually you have to look at the marketing aspects. You have to look at does the market really want something like this? Are you adding value? So I didn't like the way Tech Launch was going. So what I did is I pivoted to Tech Launch 2.0, made it into a business accelerator where we actually provided mentoring. We had, I think it was 26 bullpen events, just like Shark Tank. We had it all over the state of New Jersey at different universities. We had collaboration with meetups, and we did that through the pandemic. It went virtual, so it was a little bit easier. And then after that, I realized, probably about 2 years ago, I realized that, well, my value added as the business accelerator was diminishing, primarily because other universities, other VC firms, other angels were creating their own mentoring programs. So I decided to sort of put it on hold and focus on my angel investments. So keep in mind, all this time while I was doing Tech Launch, I was also doing angel investing.
What sorts of technologies did you tend to focus on? Did you kind of stay in your own berry patch, in the electronics and RF sort of world, or did you venture out and try some other things?
Really tried some other things. I got into alternative energy, renewable energy. I got into medtech, some biotech, digital health. Actually, my portfolio, I've invested in about 50 tech-related companies. And so I was really opportunistic, right? So I thought the idea was great. I thought the founders were great. They made sense. The business model made sense. And what I realized is that I probably I've made a better return on investments with companies that I was able to associate with. I was able to provide some value. Okay. Early on, as a mentor, most companies basically need the same type of mentoring. But as they grow a year, 2 years into it, the same mentor that was done in the very, very seed stage is probably not the same mentor 2 or 3 years later. So I realized, well, my real value added is in the deep tech, hard tech, defense tech, and aerospace, because that's where I came from. So I still kept some relationships and connections in that area. So now my investment interests, probably over the past year and a half, have really been more focused on areas that I can really add value regarding connections, business development, and the normal startup mentoring.
You know, the thing that impresses me about what you're able to contribute, Mario, is that the technical education that you received at Fairleigh Dickinson and as an engineer, in your experience really helps you to be a creative problem solver. And that combined with your natural ability to deal with people is just such a powerful set of tools to help young companies that are willing to listen to really benefit from understanding some of the key factors that lead to success. And so what I wanted to do was to ask you to, if you could, looking back at your long and successful career, are there kind of some indicia of success that you have seen in companies that you think distinguishes the ones that are more likely to succeed from the ones that are less likely to succeed, given the same level of success of their technologies?
So one of the important factors, persistence, commitment, and the reason it's very important when I look at investing in a company, I look at the management team. Okay. And what's really important is that if you're committed and persistent, even though, and you'll always find hurdles, you'll always find reasons why you should stop and had given a second thought and maybe not continue. But if you're committed and persistent, you'll pivot. So if you run into a problem, you'll pivot, you'll modify, you'll work around it. And if I can, an analogy. So when you're on the road and you see several mountains up the road, you look at it, and from a long distance, they look like a hill. And you look at that hill and you say, wow, I can climb that hill. So
Right.
as you get closer and closer, you realize that it's not a hill, it's a mountain. Okay. And then by that time, you're already committed. You've put your money into it, blood, sweat, and tears. You're committed. What are you going to do? You have to climb the rest of that mountain.
Mhm.
So that's the analogy I always look at and say, from a distance, it doesn't look that bad, but when you get real close, you realize it's a lot of work.
Right. And you have to be willing to do that. Of all your activities, what do you like most about what you do?
Learning. Okay, so I'm getting a higher education, and it's costing me a lot of money. Okay, it's costing me a lot of money. But what's interesting, so you know what you just reminded me, Phil, going back to the engineering background.
Mhm.
So, and I do give some career guidance to high school students, and what I tell them is you want a technical background, because what the technical background teaches you is a methodology to make things happen, a thought process. So you don't just jump into it. Before you jump into it, you sort of want to know how you're going to get there. Does it really make sense? And then if it does, then you do it. Okay, but don't go too deeply into it, because nothing will ever happen. So, but it's a technical background is they teach you the methodology. Okay. So what was your question, Phil? I diverted.
Well, no, that's a great explanation of some of the things to kind of focus on. What about mistakes to avoid, or kind of indicia that kind of people are headed in the wrong direction, or some factors that would cause you as an angel investor not to invest in the company?
So I look again, the team, right, Phil? I always look at the team, look at how they're committed, persistent, knowledge of the marketplace, knowledge of their technology, and their ability to listen. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, and I always mention this to whoever I'm mentoring or talking with, I indicate to them, I'm going to give you some guidance. I'm going to give you some feedback. But at the end of the day, whatever you decide, you have to own it. So it's very important to me that the entrepreneur is listening and then making their own decision and ownership of their action. That to me is very important. It's not important if I'm right or wrong. Okay.
Right.
What's really important is that individual or that company succeeds. And if I was able to give them some inclination of guidance, I'm successful. I feel successful. That's number one. Then number two, when I do invest, these entrepreneurs are teaching me. I'm learning things. I mean, I'll mentor someone that's developing a cancer drug. Do I know anything about that cancer drug? No, but there is a certain way of building a company, guiding that mentor. But I'm learning a little bit of what that individual knows, right? Same thing. I invested in a materials company in South Jersey. I'm learning quite a bit about material. I was a design engineer. I invested in another company again in South Jersey, a spinoff of Lockheed Martin, and they're doing microwave integrated circuits. Now, I thought I was the expert. Well, guess what? I was the expert maybe 20 years ago. I'm learning. Okay, so part of the whole angel investing, besides helping companies grow, give them some seed capital, some guidance, is I'm learning. Okay.
Mario, this has been fascinating. The time has really flown by. I am so glad that we were able to have this discussion. If people want to contact you to benefit perhaps more from your perspectives and mentorship, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, if you want to introduce me to your company, send me an executive summary, 1 page, 2 pages, fine, but send me an executive summary. If you're looking for mentorship, let me know that up front. Send me an email. My email address is Mario, Mario, at CasabonaVentures.com. Casabona Ventures, all one word.
Super, Mario. Thank you so much for being a guest today. I hope that our audience has really taken to heart the practical guidance that you were able to provide to help them take steps to make their ventures successful. And thanks to all of you who are joining us for today's podcast. Please, if you like this, subscribe. Also see us at CrowleyLawLLC.com. Just remember, we're here to help.
You've been tuning into the From Lab to Patient, Garage to Market podcast with your host, Phil Crowley. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, CrowleyLawLLC.com. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe, like, leave a positive review, and share with others.